Welcome back to Roaming with Restless Women. Today I have, at long last, Sandy Rosenthal. We've been trying to get this together for a while. Sandy is an experienced community mobilizer, most notable for founding the nonprofit levees.org with 25,000 supporters nationwide. Her 2020 book, Words Whispered in Water, explores how she, against all odds, altered the national narrative about the deadly flooding in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. A special anniversary edition of her book, featuring a new cover and foreword, went on sale in August last year in 2025, timed with the 20th anniversary of the catastrophe. Her organization has a strong physical presence in New Orleans, including the Flooded House Museum and the Levee Exhibit Hall at a major breach site. The organization has also installed 3 historic plaques vetted by the state's preservation office and hosts an annual levee breach bike tour, among other public education efforts. For these efforts, Rosenthal has received numerous awards, including Outstanding Social Entrepreneur of the Year from Tulane University and Most Influential Woman from Mount Holyoke College. She is an advocate for the 62% of the American population living in counties protected by levees. Sandy's been married to Stephen since 1979, has 3 adult married children and 2 grandchildren. She's also the co-host of the Slingshot podcast and host of the former Beat the Big Guys podcast. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you, that's for sure. So tell me just in brief about your experience in Hurricane Katrina, since that's pretty much where it all started for you.
Absolutely. The storm was forecast to be a Category 5, and it was headed straight for our house. At least that's what it felt like at the time. And we were fortunate; we were able to evacuate. We have a car, credit cards, and family out of town, and we did evacuate with the dog and my 2 sons still at home at the time. And while we were away, we found out on TV, the same way everyone else did, that the levees had broken. And
Oh,
I still remember that moment, in which was almost more than 20 years ago. And I was one of the fortunate ones in that my husband the night before told me to pack for 3 weeks. Well,
mhm.
apparently, my husband's an insurance agent, and he had watched what happened after Hurricane Andrew went through Florida.
Yeah, down in Homestead, right.
Yes. And he knew that there'd be no electricity for weeks, no phone for weeks, no ice for weeks. So he said, pack for 3 weeks. And I did. And I think I'm the only person in all of New Orleans that did that. And but
Yeah.
because of that, I had the luxury of being, having what I needed, and I could do something no one else could do. I could listen to the radio, watch TV, read the news. Everyone else was busy surviving, literally.
Yes.
And that's what gave me the opportunity to realize that the American people were being fed a pack of lies. They were being told that the storm was just too big, that all of New Orleans is below sea level, and the reason we flooded is because New Orleans is a corrupt town. That was the narrative that was put out there in the
Wow.
earliest days. I mean, one congressman said, "Well, we should punish everybody who didn't evacuate and fine them." I'm not kidding. You would not believe the way we were treated. I couldn't take it. I couldn't bear it. And I got
Right.
to work and I founded the organization levees.org with a mission of making sure that everyone, certainly in this country, knows the truth about what happened. And I'm going to bring you to the punchline that Katrina wasn't a huge storm. It was a Category 2 in New Orleans. Those levees should have held. They broke at
Yes.
half the water pressure they were designed to hold. They were wrongly designed, and the people responsible is the federal government.
Yeah.
And that's where we are today, and that's what happened. But I really feel that had I not packed for 3 weeks, I mean, the American people would still believe that fairy tale, and it was a fairy tale inside and out.
Well, it's amazing to me that a lot of people in your situation, even if they had PEP for 3 weeks, would feel overwhelmed, would feel, not personally responsible for taking any kind of an action. And the fact that you did, tell me about, kind of what was the one thing that prompted you that you said, I can do something about this, me personally.
I think it's something all of your listeners can relate to. I got into an argument with a very obnoxious man,
Yes.
and he told me that New Orleanians didn't deserve help. And he said that to my face. You're right. You're absolutely right, Julie, in that no, I didn't flood and I was one of the lucky ones. But everyone I knew flooded. And the entire
Yeah.
town is devastated and traumatized by what happened. And he said this to my face, that he said New Orleans was a huge storm. There was nothing wrong with those levees, and you all don't deserve help. Well,
Mm.
and those of you I'll spare you the details. It's all in my book. But that day, I went home and I said to my husband, I have to do something. I can't take it. I have to do something. And that was the start. And if I could, I don't even know this man's name, but if I were to meet him today, I would thank him because
Oh, be
he put me on the straight and narrow path to where I am today, talking to you.
so why were people, and I think I know the answer to this question, but why were people saying New Orleans did not deserve help
Keep in mind that the organization responsible was the federal government, the U.S. Army Corps of
of
Engineers.
engineers?
This
Right.
this is an organization with 200 years of experience, a sterling reputation. They are known for building things too good. And that was their reputation in
Hmm.
2005, the year that Hurricane Katrina floodwaters entered the city of New Orleans. And it was just too difficult for people to wrap their heads around.
Right.
And keep in mind, the federal government had millions to spend to promote that fairy tale. And so here I was with no income stream
Well,
up
and you're not a
against,
civil engineer,
and
correct?
I'm not even an engineer,
Right. There you
or
go. Okay.
and with no political experience, no legal experience, really no
Gotcha.
media experience
Uh-huh.
against the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So that should tell your listeners right now, I said, don't ever underestimate yourself.
There you
Once you've
go.
made up your mind to move forward, and when you know in your heart what you're doing is right.
Absolutely. And so why did they say that New Orleans didn't deserve
Again, the attitude was that, well, we should have all evacuated, and we shouldn't,
Okay.
or we shouldn't have been living here, or we shouldn't have built homes in quote unquote harm's way. Well, no, New Orleans is a port. It's a port city.
Right.
Shipping is our number one um, um, industry, and then
Right.
tourism, okay? Shipping and tourism. So, no, we had every right to be here, but that was the narrative. And it was also fed by a lot of members of Congress. Another member of Congress suggested, let's just pave over New Orleans and not rebuild. That's what New Orleanians were up against. Meanwhile, they're trying to
Wow.
survive. That they had to wake up in the morning and go, where will I live? Where will I work? Where will my children go to school?
Well, yeah, and it's not like it was going to be a couple of weeks. This was
Right.
years. And
Years.
even, yes, my husband and I vacationed in New Orleans in, I think it was 2012. And still,
Mm.
the ravages, it was evident. There were places that had halfway come back. There were places that there was one house that had been rebuilt out of an entire neighborhood.
Hmm.
And, I've seen the levees. I've seen them up, when I visited there. They're they're huge. But um, and I would have thought if I didn't know better at this point, I would have thought they would have been adequate. Right?
You would
Who
have
would
thought
have
what?
thought they would have been adequate because I don't have any engineering or any kind of way to assess what I was seeing. To me, they just looked really huge. And I was thinking,
They're big.
how did this all happen? Right. And so I could understand um, people living there feeling safe and then being rudely awakened.
Oh, we all thought we were safe. I mean, for your listeners, imagine you're driving on an interstate, and you
Hmm.
cross over a bridge. You're not worried that the bridge is going to hold. And this is
Right.
the federal government. It's an interstate. It's a federal interstate. Well, it was the similarly with our levees protecting us. They're built by the federal government, which
Yeah.
again had a reputation for building things too good, for taking too
Right.
long to build them and building them too good. No, we had no reason to think these levees were going to break. Most people got out because people kind of like having internet and air conditioning, and and uh, and there would have been no
Hmm.
services, no ambulance, no police. So if you could get out, you did.
Right.
Those who didn't, not enough attention was paid, unfortunately, to those without a car, credit card, road experience, and family living out of town. And that's
Right.
all changed. That's all changed throughout the country, not just in New Orleans.
Right. So, what was the first thing that you did when you had this idea to build, to build this organization? What was the first thing that you set out to do?
Keep in mind this is 20 years ago. So
Hmm.
we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have Facebook really, unless
Yeah.
you were a college kid, college students. We didn't have YouTube was fledgling
Yeah.
uh, in 20 years ago.
Can
So
you
we
even
did it
believe it's only been 20 years?
20 years. So, and I'm not, your listener don't know this yet, but I wasn't even in New Orleans. My son's school was flooded, and we were living in Lafayette, an hour and a half away, about 2 hours
Mm.
away. So we did things the old-fashioned way with email. And the first thing I did, my son and I together, my 15-year-old son, we worked together as a team. I created the mission, which is for the people of the country to understand what happened. And he built a website. And he built his website, which is still available. You can still go online and
Cool.
see the very first website, and then look how it's morphed into what it is today. And we rolled out our website and with a mission. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, we need more than a website to change the world.
Right, right.
So, and to change a major narrative that was very well entrenched in October. So I thought to myself, I know members, we have a membership. And so I said, well, how do I do that? I said, I know. I'm going to put a petition on our website to the president, which was George W. Bush, asking
Hmm.
him to keep his promise and rebuild the levees bigger and stronger. So the website went up, the petition went up on the website. I forwarded the website to all my family and friends, asked them please sign that petition, and that automatically made them members. 200 people overnight, which
Beautiful.
is pretty impressive 20 years ago. If
Yeah.
even today, 200 people overnight is pretty impressive. So
Yes.
that's how it started. And then our first event was a rally on the levee, which was right next to the Army Corps of Engineers headquarters. And they actually were worried. They actually were worried about what that crowd was going to look like. There's a lot of angry, very upset people who had lost everything. Some of them had lost family members. Nearly
Mm,
1,400 people perished in those floodwaters.
right.
So that was our first event. That event did put us on the map. It did get a lot of press, a lot of video, a lot of media coverage, and from then on, we just stuck with it, 1 foot at a time, 1 foot in front of the other, and eventually, we did accomplish our mission, which is to change the narrative about why New Orleans flooded. The most important people, if you will, media needs to get the story right. I mean, I'm talking Washington Post, New York Times, Boston Globe. Los Angeles Times, the major media, and more. Once they got the story right, everything else kind of fell into place. The media is very important. The media is not. And one should never look to the media as a an anointment of whether something is right or wrong.
Right, right.
Okay, never. But if all the media is on the same page with a particular issue, such as this, Associated Press, there's another one. That's really a big step forward because they issue something called style guides. And for the
Mm-hmm.
journalists in your audience, a style guide is a way of describing something. And the Associated Press did revise their style guide to include levee failure when talking about Hurricane Katrina.
Wow.
That
So
was a
how did you
big
find
deal.
out? How did you go about finding out the real facts?
You know what? I can read.
Yeah?
I mean, that's what I did. I read the investigative reports.
Uh-huh.
I read the investigative there's a technical word for it. And there's an engineer's term for it. I read them because most of them are
Oh,
written for lay people. And
okay.
uh, and that's where the information was, but you have to look for it. I mean, it wasn't delivered to my doorstep. And not only that, this is important for your listeners, you have to go beyond the executive summary. Important
Oh,
information
heck
can
yeah.
Important information can be in the executive summary, and I mean, be in the report and not in the executive summary, and it goes both ways. Wrong information can be in the executive summary that's not even in the report. It's gone both ways. I've seen it
Mm-hmm.
both ways. And you call it out and you
Mm-hmm.
publicize it and you just get the word out. But you'd be surprised how few people read the report.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah, they're boring.
Mm,
So you
yeah.
kind of have to have a
Yes.
reason. So you had a reason to question the narrative, which is why you personally invested and took the time to read all of that. And I think of a lot of people um don't take the time to do their own fact checking. They rely on, the experts or the media or whoever to do their fact checking for them. And I think that's why we have some, herd mentality in how we run our country these days. It's just nobody double checks what they're hearing with the real facts.
And I could,
Yeah.
that's so true. And
Hmm.
and the only thing I can add to that is, the way to get attention is simple. Follow these three steps. Ask a reasonable question, make a valid point, and back it up with the data, which is what I just
Yes.
spoke about. It's there. You just got to
Yeah.
read. I have to share a funny story. I was once in the same room as a retired Army Corps of Engineers engineer, and he asked me a
Hmm.
specific question about the flood protection. I answered it like boom, had an
Hmm.
answer right away. He looked at me and said, "How did you know about that?" And I said, "I
Mm.
can read."
Yeah, it's not that hard.
And that
Yeah.
really surprised him that someone
Oh,
had read this information and was able to just pull it out of a hat and answer a question. So there you
that's
go.
amazing. That's
Geeks,
perfect.
I'm not a geek, but geeks can rule the world.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me about your book.
I got a phone call 2 years before the 15th anniversary, which would have been 2015.
2020. Okay, yeah,
Uh,
20.
no, wait a minute, I'm not saying that right. That would have
2020.
been right. And I got a phone call, and he told his name is Ken McCarthy, and he was my media advisor. And he told me that I needed to write a book because I was the only one with the information to do that, to write the story, my story about how I turned around the narrative. And this was my response to him. I know. No, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. But he was
Yeah,
right. And it needed to be done, so I did. And it took me a long time because I continued to do the work of levees.org while I was writing this
of
book.
course, right?
And I must say that the number one resource for me was Gmail. For your listeners that don't know, Gmail saves every email you've ever sent and every one you've ever received. And so what that created for me was a database of my all of my work running levees.org, and all I had to do was type in a keyword into my own Google account, Gmail account. Up there was the data right there.
Yeah.
And I heavily relied on that when I wrote the book. Thank goodness my son, just before we launched levees.org, asked me to switch from AOL to Gmail.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm glad he was able to be part of the whole thing with you. Okay, so where do you stand right now with levees.org?
We have pretty much accomplished everything we set out to do. But we're not one to just sit back. We stay vigilant. If
Mm-hmm.
we ever see snips of that fairy tale still getting out there, we come in and we shut that down. But more importantly, we've taken on a mission. We want for every single engineering college in the country, and there are about 200 of them. We want
Mm-hmm.
for every single one of them to be instructing their students on failures and lessons learned from those failures. It is not standard.
Yes.
It is not standard procedure. And
Wow.
in
You would
our
think it would
organization,
be.
you would think, but it
Yeah.
turns up it's not. It is not
Wow.
standard. And we want it standardized. So we want it such that if a college does not demonstrate that it's providing instruction on failures, that they could lose their accreditation.
Mm.
And
Sounds
that's
like
the
a great
secret.
mission.
Yeah,
Sounds like a
that's the
great
secret. So,
mission.
so we launched that campaign about 3 years ago, and we knew when we launched it, it was going to be a marathon. But
Mm-hmm.
but we're not giving up.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, this has been awesome. I'm going to ask the three questions that I ask at the end of every podcast, and you'll really get tickled at these. These are easy, I promise you.
Okay.
Okay. So my first question is, if you could close your eyes.
You want me to close my eyes now?
Yeah,
Okay. hmm
yeah. Describe what you see in your mind's eye when I say wise woman.
Wise woman.
Yes.
Well, I definitely see someone silver haired. That's what I see, but probably because I have silver hair. But that's what I see. A wise woman with glasses.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so next question. Where do you like to roam?
My preference is woodsy areas. I grew up in New England in a very wooded area, and I love to roam alone. I would come upon opossums playing dead, and
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of cool wildlife. And so I think my favorite places to roam is in through forests.
Yes. A lot of people love that too. And what makes you restless, but in a good way?
Okay. Sitting too long makes me restless. I feel I need to be accomplishing something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I've also learned the value of when you've been sitting too long, do some exercise, even if it's a brisk
Right.
walk, because what happens is those problems, those challenges, always get smaller.
They sure do. And that is a great wise woman quote for me to put in the episode because I think you're right. When you're sitting, you're brooding, and your mind tends to just kind of race and bring all the crap up and mull over it, and that can really mire you down. But when you can get up and get out and maybe take the dog for a walk, which I'm going to do after our
hmm
interview.
Me too.
Yeah,
And the challenges don't go away. They just get
no,
smaller.
they do. And sometimes you actually get inspired on how to solve them when you get out of the environment that you're stuck in.
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly why it got smaller. Now you know what to do.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, how can people get a hold of you? What is your website, or how can they contact you if they're interested in following your work?
Well, there's all kinds of things out there. There's that engineering failure campaign. There's the
Mm-hmm.
book. There's levees.org. There's my podcast. And since there's so much, I decided to have it all available from one place. And that
Okay.
one place is my name, sandyrosenthal.net. N-E-T.
Perfect. Well, that's what I'll do then. I'll put that in the show notes so people can get a hold of you and see everything that you've got going on. It sounds like you're a very busy woman. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. I finally got you on. I appreciate it. And if you need help with, any ideas for if you've got a situation that you would like to expose, or you would like to talk with Sandy about how she went about raising awareness and making change, please feel free to reach out on her website. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it. Julie Noonan here. Thank you so much for listening to Roaming with Restless Women. If you're a successful senior woman leader who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.intuitivewisdomcoach.com. If you enjoyed this interview, please share this episode on social media and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Your thumbs ups and reviews go a long way.